I really feel like we get this great opportunity to dig into first kind of look at the trends, what we're seeing, what our lived experience is. Can we just all agree we have been through a time 5 years ago? We were navigating our organizations through COVID. Oh my gosh, sorry to bring it up, but I think we deserved some recognition of ourselves. Would you agree? I think we deserve some recognition. We navigated the Great Resignation where we had so many jobs and so many vacancies. I think we get a chance to acknowledge that we are somehow navigating our way through conscious quitting. Anyone here raising a young adult and you're just worried that they may not leave your basement, that they will be living with you forever because you're worried they're going to just keep consciously quitting? Anyone? I happen to be raising young adults. Yeah, me. Shay, you get it. We're in the same regard. Like we all are super glad that people are standing true to their values, and you have two. Okay, so yeah, I've got two as well. And then here we are. Now we're trying to figure out with AI, how so many white collar roles. I mean, how many of us thought when we were sitting down with our guidance counselors that if we went to college, went to university, that we may be looking at if our job was secure? Oh my gosh. And like, I just want to say, I'm sending out some love to all of my American friends here who are on the line because it's been pretty tricky between our countries. I'm sending love to all of you across the globe. There's been a lot of tough stuff. Can we just say in this world, in our webinar this next 2 days, we are a family. Can we agree? I want us to feel connected. I'm sure you do too. And the reality is that all the economic stability that comes, yeah, I love it. Thank you, friends. With all the economic instability, the reality is that people's well-being, it may be one of the biggest threats to the workplace. So the yummy thing is that we have from this, because none of that feels yummy, right? Can we all just agree? We were talking about ice cream earlier, which is the yummy part, but none of the things I just shared, they all seems like a bit of a downer. The reality is, in those times of chaos, we know as human resource professionals, as sometimes the people that are not looked to first for the answers, for the solutions, and yet we often see where the greatest opportunities exist. And that is really what is kicking off this amazing 2 days. Again, thank you to our Bucketlist rewards folks who give us the opportunity to talk about how recognition can be that secret weapon for our organizations. So if you had the privilege of attending the virtual conference last fall, you will recall that I shared how recognition matters from a psychology, a human behavior, a behavioral economic standpoint, a neurolinguistic standpoint, a neurology standpoint in this regard. Would you agree, would you not, that everybody needs to know that they matter to somebody else? Have you ever met somebody in your organization that said, no, I don't really need to know that I matter, that my work means anything? Of course, everybody needs it, right? Yes, for sure. And the good news is it's easy. I mean, you all did such a wonderful job of sharing the various ways you like to be recognized. And what did we see as some of our common themes, friends? We saw thank you notes, we saw Slack messages, we saw texts, we saw, we saw so many elements about what makes it very easy for us to recognize. So again, secret weapon. And then it's universal. So this means that whether it's the owner, CEO, somebody who's brand new, somebody who's a student and an intern, somebody who's been there 30 years, this is our way to build that connective tissue if it's lacking, and to keep it strong if it's not lacking. So again, I'm preaching the converted here. I'm reinforcing that there's science behind all the amazing things that we're going to talk about over the next 2 days. So let me ask you, friends, I'm going to call you friends. It's funny, somebody called me out last week when I was doing a session. They said, we're not friends. You've never met me. I kind of do feel like we're friends because we all believe in recognition. So hopefully that doesn't feel insincere. I'm seriously sharing some huge gratitude to all of you. I really, really, truly appreciate each and every one of you. So I'm going to keep calling you friends. If you're don't like it, type DN in the chat and I'll change that. Here's what I want to know, friends. What does it feel like to be in an organization where we thank less, where we keep back recognition, where we keep back things? I'm not thanking somebody for doing their job. What does that feel like? Tell me in the chat. You probably worked for a boss in an organization with colleagues. Yeah, frustrating, lonely, stifling. Yeah, you don't care about people, cold. Yeah, exactly. Used to hear that all the time. Oh no, you deserve better. Hopefully you're somewhere where you feel valued. Now, let me ask you this question. What does it feel like when you work in a place where it's thankful, full of thanks, full of appreciative people, people who are noticing the extraordinary, energizing, exactly, motivated, you give extra, amazing, like home. Oh my gosh. And we spend more hours working than anywhere else. So it should feel like home. Absolutely. Oh my God, look at blowing up the chat. So friends, here's the thing. We have all worked in organizations where it's thank less is the approach. We are leaning into thankful, and we are all the change agents to make that happen. And what I'm going to share with you today, which builds on, if you joined me last time, it's going to build on our conversation. Even if you weren't in our session the last time, I still got you, because we're going to talk about how to look at the employee experience journey so that we make sure it's full from start to end. And I think you're going to be surprised at how quickly it starts and how it doesn't actually end in the traditional way. Are you curious? Type curious if you're a little bit curious. And in the meantime, let me also ground us in this. Part of what we're talking about is it's about rewards. Oh, I love all the curiosity. So good. Here's the reality too. We often talk about rewards and recognition as if it's the same thing. So let's just, again, come back to a core foundational element to our entire conversation today. And I'm sure you'll hear this echoed all throughout the next 2 days. That yes, it's reward and recognition, and both rewards and recognition have very intentional, very important elements that when combined makes for that thankfulness. Recognition builds relationship currency. We know that it hits the truly connective shared human experience when people feel like the acknowledgement taps into their intrinsic motivation. So all the things that you shared in it being where you work in a thankful organization, when you shared the ways you want to be appreciated, such as doing a successful work on a project, writing a note, when you read that note and it's somebody acknowledging the things that you deeply value, does that not mean more? Please type in the chat more. If it means more, when people are acknowledging something, it's about what you really care about. Exactly. Oh, I love that, Sue, with the more exclamation point in all caps. Shout it, my friend. And rewards can be a transactional reinforcement of extrinsic motivators, such as living the company's values, which hopefully are aligned, right? Achieving project goals, KPIs, stretch targets. It's not that we don't want rewards. It's just, I think some of us, would you agree? Type in the agree if you agree. Some of us have worked in organizations where it's only about rewards. It's about billable hours, or it's about meeting the targets. It's about getting the bonus. And how many people, yes, it's great. I mean, hey, don't all of us want to pay down our mortgage faster? Absolutely. Imagine working in an organization where the only time you ever were rewarded was it was financial, and it was only if you were, achieved above and beyond. You only heard it once a year or every 5 years. We all know that that's not sustainable, right? So that's where I think we can all agree this is a conversation about how to build rewards and recognition so that they are not in an it's complicated relationship, but actually we can cohabitate very intentionally. And the reality is that when we do that, we can cross that recognition divide, that we can be both fulfilled in that it's more engaging, people are more likely to stay, they're more likely to thrive. And as opposed to people not feeling work is fulfilling. This is part of where people are 10 times more likely to leave a job if there's bullying and incivility than there was before. Did anybody, I want to level with friends. I want to ask you, and I am going to be the first one to say me. Type me in the chat if you have ever put up with incivility earlier in your career because you thought you had to. I was told by my hardworking dad that you just have to put up with it. I love my father, but that was how he was raised and he expected me to. I think when we can all agree, nobody should ever have to put up with that. And so, given that we have this shifting reality, yeah, had to go through it, Nikki, and I bet you'll never let somebody else go through it again, too, right? So here's what makes work so fulfilling. We often look at a lot of these challenges, these trends that I kicked off our time together, such as conscious quitting. We talk about it in terms of it being a problem, when it might actually be yet another example of our greatest opportunity. Because if people are saying, I will not work somewhere where you have said corporately that you value respect, and every day I am disrespected by my colleague, no more. I am out. Isn't that a good thing in the end, friends? If you think it's a good thing, type good in the chat. I think sometimes people voting with their feet gives us yeah, exactly. It's great. I love how you're not just saying good. Many of you are saying it's great. It gives us the fuel to say we need to do better. We need to do align. We need to do authentic. We need to do sincere. Our quest to build recognition rich cultures is really about building cultures that are morally aligned, that do social good, that build well being, that's not tolerating the low, and not lowering of like, what do you have to put up with, the way some of us clearly had to. Yeah, thriving 44% more likely in life overall. Oh, sorry. You can't see the words. Sorry about that. We will, I'll ask my colleague Mallory to screen capture it and throw it in there. So here's the thing, my friends. We know from the data that this is not only helping people to live a more effective, that philosophy and that call to action by Bucketlist, that's, the extraordinary. The extraordinary not only happens in our workplaces and in our teams, it also happens in every person's life, that it is in a culture that is as yummy as the ice cream flavor you said that you love the most. This seems like fluffy stuff, but let's all agree it's not. In our current frozen job market, now I will say it's not frozen in all industries. We're see hospitality and healthcare still have massive shortages, and we still are desperately needing folks in those sectors. Many sectors, though, have had a stabilization of the workforce, and also sadly, frankly, devastatingly, dare I say, that many people have lost their jobs, or they're not switching jobs because they're not sure if it's going to be, the right place for them. So even in a frozen job market, it could be very easy for people outside of the human resources, people and culture, learning and development crew that we all are, to say, oh, good, we don't have a turnover problem. Let's shift our attention to other operational issues. And we're saying, no, 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 no. Just because we don't have necessarily as many people leaving, we can have a bigger problem on our hands, because people may be staying and on the job retired. And so here's what I invite us to think about, friends. I invite us to take this opportunity to consider the employee experience. So I have this tool for you. My colleague Mallory is going to pop the link in the chat so that you can go and have scrumptious conversations with people at the 10 phases of the employee experience journey. Our team has worked so hard in this, and oh my gosh, I shared this with Rebecca. She was like a kid in a candy store. She said, I love that we were talking about recognition as early as possible, and not seeing that people are leaving the organization, that we're seeing people as being able to stay. So here's what the reality is. A lot of us think about, and we have programs that do recognition really well when people are at the contribute phase, where we're, wanting to make sure. And in fact, by the way, when we share this with you, you can poke around. There's lots of ideas. There's a little video that I share with you to understand it more. We get often support for investment of corporate dollars to go into recognizing people for their everyday contribution. We definitely get an opportunity to fuel and fund and support organizations, scrumptious, yes, Susan, scrumptious, that we get a chance to reinforce the influencers, such as people who are stepping up, leading committees and projects and things like that. And, organizations that invest in people's development are more likely to have profitable people. We get that for sure. And of course, as people are advancing, this is usually where we get a chance to have the most support for us to be able to invest in people. Obviously 82% of companies that identify high potential candidates at a managerial level, they'll have a more successful pipeline of people being brought into that. So how do we practice it? Leadership development, onboarding coaching. These things are not new to you, so we're not going to spend time on that today, but I do want to say go and have some fun in there. Maybe in a future webinar, we'll talk about stuff at the end of the employee experience journey. For our time today, I would love for us to spend a whole bunch of it talking about candidates, how they experience you as early as possible. What do you think, friends? Do you think it'd be fun to talk about how before somebody is even in a hiring situation with you, how do you make them fall in love with you? What do you think? Yes? Would you like to hear how people can fall in love with you before they even apply? Mary, game on. This is dedicated to you, Mary. You're the first one who responded. So we're going to talk about the first 3 phases in our time together. And again, know that this is going to be sharing some deep dives into a number of these examples. However, the possibilities of conversations in your organization are endless. And by the way, reach out to me anytime, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm your recognition phone a friend, just like Rebecca and the whole Bucketlist team are. We're happy to be a thinking partner to you anytime. So please let me know. And you are welcome to enjoy that tool with your colleagues. So ready to dive in? Mary was all over this right now, and we've got Susan who's got exclamation points. So we are not going to waste another minute. All right, let's jump in. Think about how recognition phone a friend. I totally am, Susan. Seriously, no joke. Ask my colleague Mallory. People will reach out to me every day on LinkedIn and ask me a question. I answer all my LinkedIns personally. I so appreciate it when people ask questions. So I seriously am. I'm so glad you'll be reaching out. Okay. So friends, think about when you were in high school, when you were in college, university, maybe when you were starting out in your quest for adulting. By the way, is there anything more painful than adulting? Just saying, first mortgages, it's the worst. Did you feel like you had companies out there who you might want to work for who were falling over themselves to help you figure out what you wanted to be when you grew up? Was your guidance counselor actually useful to you? I have to tell you, my guidance counselor never ever had a job, I think, other than a McDonald's. He didn't quite, never with dots. Exactly. That's probably should be an acronym, Mary. I love that. So maybe it's on us. Maybe there is an amazing opportunity for our organizations to be that way. I want to give you an example that I didn't realize was an example of this until years later. I spent a lot of my corporate career before I became Canada's recognition expert 10 years ago. I shouldn't say I became it. Our team would leverage recognition in every team intervention we would do, in every leadership coaching I would do. It was always foundational. So I should probably say I've kind of been, like all of you on the line, a recognition diehard all 25 years of my career. Here is a fascinating thing when I look back on the worst with the worst hood. I love this. Check out Darlene's hilarity in the chat. Just saying. So, Darlene, I want to work with you. You're hilarious. So looking back, remember how have you ever looked back on elements of your career and things really resonated and you're not quite sure why it stood out for you so much? Here's an example. So it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It's a Monday morning. I'm working in this large community teaching hospital, and I've gone down. Our team, our learning and development team, helps to put on an event every year where we bring high school students. These are students who are in all of the science streams, and they would come and we would do a tour of the hospital. And we always start in the ER. So we have this big group of students and their eyes are as big as saucers. They've just had to go through all the paperwork, signing permissions. They won't take any pictures. They will not share anything that they've seen. They see computers. They see people rushing around. And all of a sudden, the doors of the emergency room burst open and you hear the siren, rear, 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 rear. The lights are flashing. People start to run to the doors. There's a stretcher. Somebody's coming off the stretcher. There's a mom who's in tears. You've got to help my daughter. You've got to help my daughter. And they rush her into the trauma room. They close the door. And our team is staring at this freaked out group of students. I grab the social work and I say, could we please go? I'm going to get a room. Let's bring these students over into the room. We got to debrief this. And these students are just, Oh my gosh, fortunately, the charge nurse comes in and she says, "Everyone, I want you to know it's okay. We've had a kid come in. I know that you probably saw, you may know this student. She's from your school. I want you to know she's okay. We've stabilized her." I mean, seriously, all of this has happened in a 10-minute period of time. The social worker says, "What was this experience like for you?" People are saying scary, nervous. Somebody said, actually, it's kind of inspiring that this much can happen in our community. And she said, "Do you know that we have had a tenfold increase in drunk driving by people your age up to the age of 25? This was a mock demonstration. This is to help you see two things. Number one, each and every one of you are responsible for making sure that never happens in real life, in this emergency room or anywhere. And number two, you need to be in a career in healthcare. You need to be the one to save people who make bad choices." Now, some of you may be like, "Oh, what? How is that possible?" Every parent signed a permission form for their student to experience that. I want to tell you, for one thing, this movement, just this one little thing, reduced the number of people who were drunk driving in this cohort tremendously. We did this over a 10-year period of time. Here's the other thing. You know what did increase? The number of those students who chose careers in medicine, whether it be nursing, respiratory therapy, social work, and of course, physician. And many of those students in those cohorts came and worked in that hospital. That is an extreme example, and one that is possible in healthcare, not possible everywhere else, but every industry has possibilities for people to have a preview of what it might be like. And so, and I want to tell you, everyone's okay in that situation. Yes, it is better experiencing than in real life, Simone. By the way, my daughter's Simone. Oh, it's so nice to meet another Simone. Here's a beautiful example in another context. I was speaking at a conference last month in Florida, and it's these incredibly passionate retirement professionals. So these are the people who make sure that people have choice in their life and can retire with dignity on their terms. Lovely humans. One of those people is Lisa. Lisa, you can see if you look on that first Polaroid picture, she's the second from the left, smiling there in a blue shirt. She is a financial services advisor professional. Now she works specifically in retirement savings. And what she wanted to do was to bring young people together so that they know how to spend and save and can do better financial management. Is anyone here thinking that that might be a good idea? Type yes if you think that every person who has insights into the being a good financial steward would benefit teaching our young people how to save, get mortgages, spend well. Yes. So Lisa, amazing human that she is, decided to start this, and her and colleagues have this thing called the FinLit Future Story. You can Google it. She's amazing. Lovely human. She helps people, not only young people, explore how they can be more financially literate. She also, in the process, helps people to see how they can be part of the solution. What started as a desire to make people more financially literate became realizing that all of these students said, "I think I might like to have a career in this field." And so, what's amazing about this, and think about this in your own organization, in your own industry. Many of us, type us in the chat, there is not a clear pipeline into your sector, into your business. Like if you were, when we were in, yeah, many of you, exactly. In working in hospitals, we had people being told from the time they were little children, "Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be a doctor?" So it was a little bit easier for us to have conversations with people about that. However, we've all heard those statistics. There are more jobs being created now that I read a statistic the other day that 75% of the jobs that will be the rising jobs in 2030 don't even exist now. I mean, does that not blow your mind? So we actually would benefit as industries and organizations of helping to engage. Remember, this is part of the explore phase of this 10-phase employee experience journey. And so how ironic it is that before somebody's even an employee, we're helping them to explore a career, or it may not be a career. It could be about what you care about as an organization. It could be about exploring jobs in your community. I work for this really did some, oh my God, it was so much fun. Some work around, yeah, exactly, Naomi. People can discourage students from joining the field. Naomi, I'm so glad you said that. Because you know what? My son he actually just made this. Here's the little fun little, he just made me this. He went back to school to be a welder. He made me this in class yesterday as his assignment. And it took him really exploring what does he want to do. Nobody suggested to him, yay for your son, thank you. Nobody suggested to him he should be a welder. And you know what? He loves it. If only they had talked about trade careers in school. And yet we all are talking all the time that we don't have enough people in the trades. Why are we not talking about it at school? So there we go. Little side note, I'm totally with you. Yeah, trade careers are amazing, Mary. So careers in your sector are amazing too. So how can you have bringing, the bring your kid to work day? Yes, we've got things like that. What if employees don't have kids? Could we encourage people to bring their nieces, their nephews? Could you host an event in the community? I did some amazing work with Chatham-Kent, which is a municipality here in Ontario, Canada. And they had this issue with lots of people because they didn't have a college university. People would leave, go to train, and then they wouldn't come back. So they did this incredible community. It wasn't even a job fair. It was like the amazing opportunities in our own backyard. And everything from the fire department to the city hall to the local businesses. If you want to be a bakery, do you know that there are 3 bakers employed in this business and this one and this one and this one? They had so many people come back. They ran this a few years in a row. I think they're still doing it. They had so many people come back to work in their community. Why? Nobody knew just how many opportunities existed. They were only aware of the ones that maybe their parents or their neighbors had. So another beautiful opportunity to look at that, which means that we can also think about how do we help prepare? How do we help prepare people to be successful? So I was digging around because I wanted to find a really yummy example for all of you. And I see lots of people doing cool things, but I wanted a beautiful example where there are many cool things happening with prepare. So Dyson, I have to say, I use my Dyson blow dryer today as an homage to them. And does anyone else have a Dyson product? I'm not saying Dyson's the be all and end all. I'm just saying like lots of us have had really cool items that we've purchased because they're a pretty innovative company. Well, do you know, before you even become an employee, they have this really neat competition. It's called Problem Solvers Wanted. Yeah, vacuums are amazing. Exactly, Susan. Do you know you don't even have to be an employee to be able to enter that contest? And if you enter that contest, you are obviously given lots of support and to apply and maybe get an internship into the organization. But you don't even necessarily need to work for Dyson to be able to be part of this really interesting incubator of inventors. How cool is that? Right on their website. Their career page website is so solid. Who we are, where we work, what we're about. They have stories, so many of them. In fact, this example of the stories, you can click country, type of profession. So you know how we often want to see, do people like me exist in this organization? Yes. Somebody who speaks your language, somebody who lives in your country, somebody who physically looks like you. You can go literally search it and find so many stories where they're talking about it themselves. I love that, Frank. Thank you so much for that. And you know what? Here's the thing that I think was the yummiest. This is what made me decide to share their example. They also have an inclusive mechanism for supporting people to prepare and be successful when they apply. HireVue, never heard of them before, dug into it, Turns out they help make sure that if you want to apply to Dyson and you have an accessibility need, you have neurodivergence, you need a little bit more time to apply. English isn't your first language. Maybe you have a visual impairment. Their platform will help you still apply and not be dinged. Hello. We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's diverse, equity, inclusion hiring that is aligned with your philosophy. So this is all part of prepare. Again, none of these people and none of the things that are available have actually gotten somebody a job. Does Dyson need to do this stuff? No. Do they know that if they make people the most successful, that they will be likely successful? Darn right they do. In fact, the research supports this. Totally outside of the Dyson research, this is what we know from Gallup, research from last year. People who are well supported and have a good candidate experience, 2.5 times more likely to feel a strong sense of connection to company culture. Makes sense, right? Yes, Tess, of course you love it. It makes sense. 3 times more likely to be satisfied at work, 2.7 times to say that their experience was good or better than expected. What gets appreciated gets repeated. So when we appreciate people for simply showing up and considering us, they will be more likely to follow all of the next steps to apply and also give their best because they know that the organization had no responsibility to do any of those things. Now, let's talk about attract. This is the third of the 3 phases that I wanted to cover in our time today. And by the way, if you're thinking of questions, feel free to be dropping those in the Q&A if you haven't already. And I'll tell you why. Number 1, if we have time, of course, I'll answer them. Number 2, if we run out of time, Rebecca and I after our last session, we did a Q&A. She brought all your questions. We did a little yummy interview. Didn't we, Rebecca? Was that not scrumptious? We will make sure that we capture every question. If we can't answer it today, we will answer it, her and I. Rebecca already are in cahoots to be able to do a video Q&A answer session for all of you if we don't get to them all today. So please jump that in. Yes, we did. Okay, so let's talk about the attract. So here's what we know. We do a lot of things to support people's career development in organizations. I'm biased. We're all biased. I have bolded in black the rewards and recognition. Pause, 50% only do we think rewards and recognition is part of career development? Can we all agree that should be 100? Do you agree? Type what number you feel it should be. I don't think it should just be a 50. I feel like it should be 110 if that's possible to have a number above 100. I feel like career development practices, how do we make sure people are willing to go for opportunities, put their best foot forward, take a stretch assignment, if it's not 100%. So, all right, I knew that we were all converted here. So this number will change in the future. That said, this is in the attract phase of the employee experience journey. How often do people know that we have all of these career development practices? Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, plus, 100 plus. And you know what? Love the 85%. Props for, your own number. That's beautiful. So here's the thing, friends. Let's not keep our career development practices the best kept secret from potential applicants. Where do we have spots on our social media as LinkedIn articles, on our careers page of our website, from stories shared by our employees? Let's talk about how people's careers have been fueled, supported, grown as a result of specific practices. Not only are we more likely to have people excited, because let's face it, other people are not doing this enough, and so you stand out, but also, if that's something people really value, remember, recognition, when it lands and it's the most authentic, is it taps into our intrinsic motivation. So if, let's say, I deeply care about volunteering and you give me support for 1 day a week to go and volunteer at my charity of choice, let's tell people about it. If you love being able to contribute as an organization to charity, let's talk about how much money we give to charity, or that there's a process of every year we upvote which charity of choice for the year. Amazing. If you're on the Bucketlist rewards platform, I hope you've turned on the philanthropic option where as people get points, they can donate it to their charity of choice or the charity that's been selected for that year. Let's leverage all of those tools at our disposal. And oftentimes people don't realize when they are in that phase of considering. The attract phase is, where do I want to spend most of my waking hours? For this workplace, for that industry. Let's face it, people are not just leaving their job, not just leaving their boss, not just leaving their colleagues, not just leaving their workplace, their corporation. Some are leaving the entire sector. This is deeply disturbing because they're willing to give up all of those years of education, of continuous learning and development, and then with their legacy in the organization. This is tragic. Would you agree this is tragic? I don't think I'm being overly dramatic when I say people leaving the entire sector is a sign. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Mary. I think it's a sign we need to do a more robust job of letting people see all of the career development opportunities that exist in our organization and in our entire sector. Yes, exactly, Tracy. As a previous educator, for sure. And this is also the things that you do. So organizations that do frogging, here's what's so cool about it. So let's say we do a leadership development or an all staff development on frogging. I always give out fun little squishy frogs and frog eye masks and things like that. This is when people get this, by the way, it of the bottom. We have fun with it. You know what the best part is? People bring it home. People bring it home. They bring their kids in. They talk about recognition, frog, forever recognize others' greatness. That's my version of recognition. You may have the WOW program. You may have the Spotlight program. You may have the We're Stars. Do something fun with the stars. Send it home. Get the kid, people will talk about it with their family. Look at these adorable little ones in the middle. So mom and dad both work at this company. They go home and they talk about these compliment cards that they received. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to come back to these adorable little kids in a sec. So here are some compliment cards that we use at our sessions. And I ask people, tell me who in this room or who outside of this room lives these compliments. So I'm going to share these compliments with you. Let me make my picture a little bit bigger so that you can see me here. If you're curious about what software I'm using, by the way, I'm happy to tell you. Mal can put in the chat. All right. Who, initials for a second, who in your world lives this? You are truly gracious and grateful. Type initials in the chat. Who comes to mind when you think of that? And by the way, when that person comes to mind later, you could definitely send them a little note that they are truly gracious and grateful. Look at that, how quickly you're able to. Okay, how about this one? Who comes to mind? You are warm and friendly to those around you. Who comes to mind? I love it. See, you have so many, how wonderful it is to be around all these friendly people. You are naturally lighthearted and fun to be around. Mallory, I'm totally putting you in there for that. All right, perfect. Here's another one. And I hope you put your own initial in. You are resilient and resourceful. I would, I would definitely, my friends, put yourself in there. If you haven't already put your own initials, put your own initials, because goodness knows if you can lead people, culture, human resources, culture team through all the things that we've been through and continue to go through, you deserve to be acknowledged. So let me get back to the story. Thank you for having fun with me about that. Here's the fun thing. So this mom and dad who both work in this company, and they talk about their cards at the dinner table. And then the kids said, oh my gosh, do we get a chance to do this too? They came up with a game at the dinner table where they wrote down the best compliment that they could give each other. And they wrote them down on cards, and all week they gave each other those cards. Super cute, right? Don't you love it when kids get a chance to be, pulled into what we do at work and it's so positive rather than it being negative? And then they said, I think we should be thanking people who we live with. So they started thanking the neighbors, they started thanking their teachers. And then one of them, their grandpa got sick. and they went and saw grandpa in the hospital, and they talked at the dinner table like, do you think all the nurses and the doctors and all the people that we saw, do you think that they get those cards to mom and dad? And mom and dad said, no, I don't think that they do. So what did the girls do? Went into their room and wrote little signs. No joke. And they brought them the next time they visited grandpa. Yeah. So it's so beautiful when you do things at a staff appreciation event, a leadership development program, and it's so yummy and sticky, it gets taken home. And again, this is part of prepare. Why? It seems like I'm talking about later phases of the employee experience journey because aren't people working here? It's part of prepare, friends, because these are the stories that people share. If you've been recognized by the kids, by a neighbor, by a teacher, and you're like, I wonder where all this is coming from. Don't you tell wonderful stories about the workplace? Yeah, which means that other people get ready and prepared. Look at that. See, you all have beautiful, beautiful examples of how you carry that recognition forward. So let's help people see what we do in terms of recognition practices in our organizations in a way that is so sticky it gets shared outside and other people get prepared and excited to work there. Because energy goes where appreciation flows. And let's face it, is anyone feeling like the energy is a little bit low? Maybe it's bad energy. Maybe it's been negative. Like, I know I've turned off Facebook, X, TikTok. They're all gone from my phone because there wasn't a lot of positive stuff coming through. We all have make difficult choices when we don't like the discourse that's happening in the world. Maybe it's fine in your world, that's fine too. The point is, whenever we need more energy, positive energy, we need and we can amplify recognition. And so, friends, if you're not already leveraging the tools available to you, and whatever recognition tools those are, and many of you I know are coming to this because you're a Bucketlist rewards company. You use it in your organization. Let me ask you this. How can you use it so that you put the acknowledgement of a new hire before they even start and it's already on the wall? How can you make sure they're in the system so that if somebody's acknowledging them their first day, they can find them in the name? Because companies that do this, in fact, the Bucketlist team went and they asked a number of you, some of you were on the line, how you use it for new employees. Many of you talked about how you make sure that you acknowledge people's first day, first week, first success, and of course, milestones through that platform. So please, please continue to consider how you can leverage that across all phases of the employee experience journey. Because the reality is, if only 25% of people would recommend their organization, there isn't a lot of competition for people to choose yours and to keep choosing. Every day, we're in the business of earning people, not hiring them. If we talk about disengagement, it feels like a race to the bottom. But actually, I know I preach and converted. You're the ones who knows that a recognition-rich, thankful, capital Full, thankful culture is one where people feel connected to the values, both as the organization and also to the values of each other. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to hear that it went super well. That's awesome, Carlene. Love it. Ultimately, what every person wants at the end of their day is to know that they belonged somewhere. They belonged to someone. And if we want people to be here for a long time, be here and engage for a long time, we need to create those comfortable places and spaces for people to feel accepted, welcomed, and have a sense of belonging. So why not use the tools we have available? And for you, it may be the Bucketlist platform. It could be sending a coffee home to somebody on their first day. If you're in an all remote team, it could be putting balloons on somebody's chair. It could just be a quiet word, meeting somebody at the front door and saying, I'm so glad you're here. You chose the right place. I can remember starting jobs where they didn't even know I was coming that day. Nothing says you don't matter to me like not having a login password. I'm just saying. So let's make sure that people, all that work that we're thinking about doing in the beginning part of the employee experience journey allows us to keep asking this question. What experience is this? And friends, if I've been sharing some things where it's like, we don't do that, it's okay because we don't normally talk about this. That's why we're kicking off the conference talking about things that we don't normally think about as part of the rewards and recognition experience in our organization. But that's okay. It's a scrumptious conversation to have right now. Because the reality is, that employee experience journey, we're reinventing it all the time. In fact, Mal, I'll ask you to put the link in the chat again. Dig around at the end of the employee experience journey. Notice retire is not on there, friends. It is a whole new world, and it's the kind of world we want to create for an engaging experience. So let me start to wrap things up by saying this. And when I say wrap things up, it's only getting started at your virtual conference. I'm going to hand things over to Rebecca soon. But here's a great reminder. When you don't know what to do, do one thing that you know. And every person on this line knows how to do recognition well. If one more person, as a result of your coaching, your mentorship, your role modeling, knows how to do recognition better, you're already farther ahead. If you want ideas about how to keep recognition going, and again, I'll ask my colleague to pop it in the chat there so that you can see that our lovely Rebecca had mentioned that there's lots of stuff on that cool stuff page. One of the tools is 100+ ways to recognize. If you're more of a customer facing business, you can recognize your customers too. So lots of ideas there for you. I know you're too busy to go and start, even with ChatGPT, who has the time to read through all the responses, right? So we've curated a whole bunch of examples from really cool companies and things that we love to do as well. And using your virtual platform, you will notice is all throughout that resource. Friends, can I just ask you, write down in the chat what you're so proud of as a member of the human resources, people and culture, learning and development, the people side of the business. Type in the chat, what is a word that makes you, what you want to acknowledge about yourself and the other people, the other 325 people on the line. Yeah, you care. Exactly, Cynthia. Innovation, caring, trusted, personable, love. Oh, I love that word, love. Yes, thrive, caring, engage, passion, compassion. Will you please take a post-it note? If you do not have that word on a post-it note, on your laptop, your computer screen, can you do that for me now? Type yes if you're willing to do that. Because the next time you think that I am not doing enough, I want you to look at that word and say, did I do something that's caring? Did I do something that builds trust? Did I do something that was compassionate? I bet you the answer will be yes. And if you want to say, how do I make sure I leave with even deeper sense of connection to that word? Do one thing related to that. How can I reach out? How can I share a caring word? How can I recognize somebody that will build greater trust? My friends, when you don't know what to do, do one thing that you know, and you always know how to do that because that is your word. By the way, we're committed to doing social good. And just like Bucketlist and all of you who use Bucketlist is too, we have identified 3 charities of choice this year. If there's 2 questions, and then the third question is for you to pick your charity of choice. So if you wouldn't mind, at some point over the next day, fill out those 3 questions for us, if you don't mind. Basically, we want to get a gauge if this resonated for you. And then the 3 charities of choice, helping us reduce human trafficking, helping give clean water to Indigenous communities here in Canada. The third one is cancer research. So whatever you choose is your number 1 top choice. If we have at least 100 people give us a vote, we will donate in Bucketlist Family's honor, because we're part of, like all of you, we're inspired by Bucketlist, and all of you who chose that doing social good part of where people can put their points. We want to also support that. So please, if you wouldn't mind, fill that out. I'd really appreciate your feedback on this session if it landed for you, and also what your charity of choice is.